And a live look this morning at Ottawa. The federal cabinet meets today to talk about two very important issues: the ongoing trade war with the United States and the possibility of recognizing Palestinian statehood. In a statement, Global Affairs Canada says, quote, Canada is prepared to recognize a Palestinian state at the time most conducive to lasting peace, not necessarily as the last step along the path to achieving the two-state solution. Cabinet is meeting today to discuss the topic, but no decision has been made. Western nations have faced increased pressure to formally recognize a Palestinian state after both France and the UK said they would do so come September. This news coming as the UN says malnourishment and starvation is soaring in Gaza. Prime Minister Carney will meet virtually with his cabinet this afternoon to discuss the state of trade negotiations with the U.S. Carney's Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, is in Washington today to meet with U.S. officials just days ahead of President Donald Trump's August 1st deadline for a trade deal. Canadian business leaders and academics are calling on Canada and the U.S. to maintain free trade protections for most goods, even if some sectoral tariffs remain. The U.S. doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50% in early June and announced a 50% tax on imported copper that is set to take effect in August. Joining me now is CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, good morning. Good to see you. Now, Carney and his cabinet will be discussing U.S. trade negotiations this afternoon. What is the likelihood of some deal happening before Friday?
Well, it still remains unclear if we're actually going to see something at the 11th hour. And we know if we use the U.S.-Canadian or Canada trade negotiations that are taking place as a blueprint for what took place with the EU framework that President Trump just outlined, we know that even at the time when it was announced, many European officials did not think it would happen because they weren't clear Donald Trump would actually sign off on the agreement. And so I think that's what we can expect here. If there is an agreement, I don't think we will know until Donald Trump decides that he's willing to actually sign off on an agreement. And I think that's how unpredictable this president can be.
Walking into these meetings, what are U.S. officials looking for?
Well, clearly, the president has an idea, and he's already made this clear, the baseline that he wants of an agreement where basically tariffs remain in place at a rate of between 15 and 20%. And also what we have seen, particularly with the agreement with the European Union, the president is going to allow, or they were able to negotiate for the tariffs on steel, aluminum, and the copper forthcoming to remain at 50%. It's unclear what will happen on issues like spirits and pharmaceuticals. But again, what we do know is the president wants this 15% framework. But still, there is the USMCA that's in place that should protect many of the goods that come across the border. But what we're seeing right now is if Canada can actually negotiate an agreement that actually lowers that rate, then I think that will be a huge, huge win, because clearly the president has refused to walk away from at least that 15% baseline, at least based on what we have seen from both the EU and Japan.
Now, Eric, Ottawa is also now considering recognizing a Palestinian state. What might the U.S. reaction be if this were to happen? And is there any possibility of Trump doing the same?
Well, I don't think we're going to see the United States actually recognize a Palestinian state. The United States is too closely aligned with Israel. And as we have seen, even with the strikes from Israel on Iran right now, it's the tail wagging the dog, where it's Benjamin Netanyahu that's actually pushing Donald Trump to move in the direction of where Israel wants to go. And so I think what we're going to continue to see, much like when France state announced that they were recognizing a Palestinian state, that the United States is going to still be on the side of Israel, but also show some pushback and resistance to other countries actually moving in this direction. But nevertheless, what we're seeing here is the United States and Israel are increasingly looking more and more like they're on an island, given what we're seeing play out right now, particularly with the famine continuing to reach epic proportions.
All right, Eric, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.